think the key to life is figuring out how to get back into alignment. I think so many of us, as I said in the last video, so many of us have become so disconnected. And a lot of that isn't our fault. A lot of that is because just different people's opinions and teachings have been put on us, when so many of those things that we accept as being true, that we adapt as paradigms, that we allow to control our entire lives, end up being so far from the truth and so disconnected from what's really true in life. So in this video, I figured I wanted to tell you the story of how I got back into alignment, because there was a time when I was so disconnected and I honestly lost part of who I was. I lost myself. And this actually goes back to spring of 2014. It was just the time I thought it was going to be like the greatest year, the greatest time of my life, because I was working my ass off trying to get into this painting program where I went to school. And I finally got in, and I thought, like, this is the time that I'm going to be able to just have the space and to create everything I want to create, everything I've worked towards. And that part was great, but I ended up falling apart that semester. And that didn't really have much to do with it. It had to do with everything else that was going on in my life. And during that time, like, one thing I want to talk about is our environments can make such an impact on how aligned we are. If we're in this chaotic, toxic environment, it could be one or the other or both. But if we're in that, it's so easy to be disconnected and to just get sucked into the craziness of other people's drama, of other people's life, of other people's opinions, because that's all we know. And that's what we believe is the truth, because that's all we know as being true. It's really hard to have clarity when you can't even think for yourself, when you can't hear intuition or guidance, which is that calm, soft voice that wants to speak to you, wants you to listen. But it's really hard to listen when you don't have that space to just be open to stillness and to peace and being in a relaxed place to receive everything that the universe wants you to have and wants you to hear. So during that time, I was in my second semester of college. My parents were also in the process of going through a divorce. And that semester, probably work-wise, was probably my most difficult semesters. I just felt so torn everywhere, from just every direction. I just felt like it didn't matter how hard I worked, it didn't matter how much I gave, it just never felt like it was enough. And it was such a hard reality to face, because I believe for so long that if you work your ass off, if you do the work, if you give it your heart and soul to everything that you do, that everything should work out. And sometimes that is true, but many times, if there's just chaos surrounding you and there's no space to hear clarity or to just know what's the truth of life, you could get so lost in that and just get so far from who you are. Because the fact of that matter was, it didn't matter how hard I worked, it just felt like I was constantly disappointing people, that I could never get things done on time. And on top of all that, I knew that school was never this like great party for me. It was this constant like chaos of just trying to get everything done and meet a deadline, and there was like no time for sleep, no time to like think clearly. Like, none of those things really existed for me when I was in school. And on top of that, my parents were going through this crazy divorce, and my dad was just not someone who thought logically, who was just a calm and centered person. He was probably the polar opposite to that. I was bipolar on top of it. So dealing with that, and then knowing that I was coming home to chaos and a mess where it was just constant fighting, constant arguments, where there was no sense of peace or understanding. And between both of those things, I just remember losing who I was. Like, I didn't even know why I was here. I didn't know what was the point of all this. I just remember reaching a breaking point and just feeling like I was just losing everything. People who I admired, whose opinions I cared so much about, I just felt like I was losing their respect, that like there was just nothing I could do to make things right. And maybe you're experiencing that, maybe you have experienced that before, One thing I want to tell you is if you're experiencing that, like, there's a beautiful other side to all this. Like, all this tough stuff you're going through, if you do the work, like the right work, the inner work, if you do the inner work, you'll make it onto the other side and you'll be such a stronger person because of it. So for me, the biggest key was when I finally was able to release all that chaos, and a few factors happened in my life. My dad finally moved out of the house, and that was a huge thing in itself. And I finally was in a place where I could like think clearly and just listen and realize, like, what did I actually love painting? Why did I actually love to start creating in the first place? And when I was able to get back to those truths, all of a sudden I started making work that was true to who I was. One thing I have to say that was such a gift that just happened to come into my life was that following semester, I had like this one painting professor who was just the most amazing teacher, one of the most amazing teachers I've ever had. And she was just able to, the way she worked with me is we were able to just talk through ideas so I could actually create paintings that were true to who I was, that I was able to kind of talk about, this is the feeling of what I want to create. And then it just became this thing, as the more I discovered myself, the more my paintings became more true to who I was. And then what really changed everything was when I finally like graduated from traditional education, and it was finally a releasing of everything that, because what I realized is so much of what I was told wasn't true. And I kind of just knew, I reached a point where I'm like, there had to be a better way to do things. And the one gift of like being in school and finishing it and then being out in the real world is you realize that like so many things you were taught aren't true. Like when you're in school, you're in this bubble, and this might be if you're in a work environment or a work culture, you're in this bubble and you live a certain way according to the bubble, and it's constantly shaped by paradigms that other people are putting on you of what they perceive as true. And you accept it as your own truth because you don't have the awareness of what is actually true in the world. You don't have the awareness that there's actually a ridiculous amount of abundance in this world. You don't have the awareness that more people are healthy than are not. And it's just crazy as we're experiencing this pandemic in 2020 right now. So it was having this constant awareness, and I was just interested in expanding it. So I started reading books. I discovered personal development, and I think it's one of the greatest things in the world, because I think we're here to constantly grow and expand. I think we're here to constantly prove to ourselves what we're capable of. And just, I think life is about becoming the greatest versions of ourselves. But I think the key to do that is you have to get alignment with who you are and what you know is true. So for me, one big key thing was just to start releasing all the layers or all the things that were no longer serving me anymore. And one thing I also did is I started reflecting on everything. I started journaling on about everything that was happening in my life, everything that happened that made such an impact on me. And through doing that, my self-awareness just totally increased and just changed. I think once your awareness reaches a certain point, it's like you don't go back, it just continues to expand. But the key part about staying in alignment, because I think being in alignment is a constant process. It's not, like, I think you can reach a certain point where you're living so close to alignment with who you are, but it's so easy. The reality is, it's so easy to allow other people's thoughts or opinions who are not living in line with the laws of the universe, who aren't living truths based on who they are, and they're going to continue to project those things onto you. And the key is to realize, is to be able to distance yourself in those instances and realize what is actually true. And also realize, and also I think the key to that is constantly feeding your mind and studying the facts that are true. And just understand the key to life is being grateful for where you are in this moment and having a direction of where you want to go based on who you are. I mean, it's like what you want, not what other people want from you. It's what you want from you and where you want to go, and then being focused and making a decision that you're going to actually get there and doing whatever it takes to get there, as long as it's in line with being the best version of who you are.